So let's talk England selection for England versus Scotland, round 3 of the Six Nations. And this is a tricky one. It's their bogey team, of course. If they're going to win away, it's a massive feat. Do they go for consistency and keep that winning team? Do they look for changes? Because I think it's fair to say England are a long way off their best team. I did a big video on that. And to be fair to Borthwick, injuries has hampered him picking probably the team he would have liked to start with. But does he just stick with what he's got? Or does he compromise and go somewhere in between? So welcome to this Six Nations video, supported by Lifting Giants. And looking at that squad, we can see there are some returners. Manatu Alangi is back, as he always is, recovering from a groin injury, which always worries me because that was a big injury that kept him out for so long. Luke Cowan-Dickie back, and also Lock George Martin back, who can play back row. Maybe that last one, George Martin, is the biggest boost. And also Marcus Smith and Ollie Lawrence, they look like they're close to returning, maybe not for this round, but for the round after, which will give Steve Borthwick so much more to choose from. Blamire, Pearson and Beard have dropped out, but Blamire and Pearson are probably featuring in the England A game. Pearson will be interesting to see where he plays. I'm guessing he's going to be at blindside. Beard's dropped out completely, so I don't know if he's injured, but that's pretty tough for him if not. So there's the squad. That's what we've got to choose from. Now, in the first 2 games of the Six Nations, I did say this is actually probably a good time, as good as any, to try some new players, to give them lots of game time. We've seen a bit of game time for some players like Cunningham South, but I've liked to have seen Pearson, Finn Smith, Morafe Wabusu, and we haven't. But that is gone now. What do you do now? I know many of you guys said, well, we can't muck around in the Six Nations. That's what the summer's for experimenting. But let's just remind ourselves, in the summer, it's 2 games against New Zealand. Yes, there's a game against Japan, but it's New Zealand twice in New Zealand. And then in the autumn, it doesn't get any easier. New Zealand again, and South Africa, Australia. So I thought these first 2 games was the time to experiment. So what am I going to suggest now? Well, I'm actually saying that I'm going for a bit of a compromise. I know you guys rightly point out I change my selections quite a lot, but that's because, consider the last England video, I think we need to look for that best team before we stick with it. But maybe the time for wholesale changes is over. So I'm going for a bit of a halfway house. I'd be happy with this team. I don't think it's the best team for the future, but I think for right now, this is the way to go. So some stability, but also some changes to try and get this team a bit stronger. Can we beat Scotland for once? Here's the team and here's the rationale. Joe Marler starting again with Genge on the bench. You could start Genge for a quicker pack against Scotland. You could say speed is more important maybe, but it's been working quite well. Marler holding up that scrum, being rock solid, and Genge coming on for plenty of time for some impact. Same with George and Dan. I think that works fairly well. And Luke Cowan-Dickie, he is there if needed, although I don't think he should break into those 2. Will Stewart, yeah, I think he just carries on. I think he's been solid. We've talked about tight head a lot. We'll see what happens in the A game. We've seen what happens in the under-20s with Apoko Fajor. So hopefully there's some more tight heads coming online. But for now, Stewart's been solid. He's eager, he's willing, gets there on the ball. He tries really hard. So I think Stewart 3 and Hayes at 18. I just don't see any impact from Dan Cole unless he's starting. Doesn't make sense for me. So I'm consistent with that. On the bench in the second row, I think Cole stays there and you stay with Itoje and Chesham. So it's an unchanged front 5. So there's my stability in the pack. And here are the changes. I think you bring George Martin in. He is in England's 23 somewhere, I am sure. He's going to get better and better. Remember, he was starting in that World Cup semi-final, albeit in the second row. But I think Roots has had a really good run. We know what he can do. He's now on the bench. I'm not saying you throw Roots away, but I don't think he was the best 6 we had. I think it's either Martin or maybe Cunningham South. So let's try someone else. And trying Martin isn't too much of a risk because he has played in the World Cup already. So Martin at 6, which gives you 3 fantastic line-out jumping options. Try Earl at 7. I mean, you can play around with him at 8 in the scrum as well. But in that 7 role, trying to get over the ball a bit quicker. A bit tough on Ben Curry, who maybe could have done with some game time at some point, but I want to see Earl at 7. Don Brandt's not going to feature either because I'm playing Cunningham South at 8. I just want to see Martin, Earl and Cunningham South in that back row to see if that's our best mix to give us a bit more of an edge against Scotland, because I thought we were being a little bit off the pace. Underhill's been a little bit off it, not too far, but in international rugby those little inches do count. And a word on our sponsor, Lifting Giants, who have created and designed these reusable, scientifically tested lifting blocks. very clever to hand them over to an independent tester at a university, and they came back with these results saying that yes, these blocks are better than just normal foam bars. So get hold of some of these. It's really good for grassroots rugby, fully reusable, great for your line out. Get involved, RugbyAnalyst 10 for 10% off. Halfback, unchanged. Okay, let's keep it stable there. Mitchell and Ford. Again, I would have liked to have seen Finn Smith have more time, but maybe now's not the time. That time has gone. So Finn Smith on the bench, and when Marcus Smith is back, it'll be interesting to see if he can come straight back into it. If he is fully fit, I suggest he comes back into it, but that's a debate for another day. Centres, I'm going to go unchanged there again. So this compromise where, yes, I think that Dingwall and Slade isn't the best centre combination we can put out, but they've been together for 2 games now solid, so let's not change them, and let's have Tuolangi on the bench for some impact. If you start with Tuolangi, he's not fully fit. You don't know when he has to come off. So if you bring him on for maybe 15 minutes at the end, I think that could work quite well. So Dingwall and Slade can carry on, and then a little tweak in the back 3 with Faye-Wabusu starting on one wing to get more danger in this team. We need more danger in that back line, so that's my one tweak to get a bit more in at the moment. And I think we grow some more in as players come online like Ollie Lawrence. Freeman carrying on the other wing, who's been so good. And Stewart, he's had a good game last game. It's probably too late to try the alternative now. I wanted Furbank to get some game time, but he hasn't had it, so sticking with Stewart, and then Faye-Wabusu is that little bit of extra boost in the back line. So that's my starting team. So quite a lot staying the same, but some tweaks that I think does make it potentially better, and we do need to keep looking for a bit better. Yeah, like I said, Roots on the bench, Spencer instead of Danny Kerr. I don't think Danny Kerr's already done it off the bench for me. Finn Smith, the only other 10, and yeah, Tuolangi, the impact sub. So Daly a little unlucky to drop out, but I just don't think he's quick enough to play international wing, even though he's done very little wrong. Ajomo could have been an option at 12, but I did want to change the centres, and Roebuck and Furbank not used. So that's the 23 I'm going with for Scotland. A little bit of a compromise there, some stability, a few tweaks. I quite like it. Is it good enough to beat Scotland away? Well, it's going to be a hell of a challenge, but I'm excited to see this team go. If it's something like this, let me know what your team would be. How would you change it? Would you keep it the same? What do you think Borthwick would do? Put all those comments below, and I'll catch you next time.